2 months of togetherness had flown by, and one word summed it up: bliss. Taeyoung woke up, feeling the absence of his husband's warmth. "Good morning, Twink." Taeyoung rubbed his eyes, sitting up in bed. "Where are you getting ready?" "I have a meeting with someone," Jungkook replied, adjusting his tie. "Who?" Taeyoung's eyes scanned Jungkook's outfit, his gaze lingering on the way the clothes accentuated his husband's lean physique. "A new acquaintance," Jungkook said with a sly smile. "Thought I'd have a friendly meet." "You could call it a date." Taeyoung's eyes widened, and he jumped out of bed. "Date? Oppa, date?" Jungkook chuckled, his eyes crinkling. "Do I look good?" Taeyoung's gaze roamed over Jungkook's attire, his expression unimpressed. "No, you look like a boy. It doesn't suit you." Jungkook raised an eyebrow. "You want to see me in formal wear, looking old?" Taeyoung's face scrunched, his voice rising. "Who said that? Who told you that you look good like this?" Jungkook's smile faltered, and he opened his arms, embracing Taeyoung. "Twink, calm down. I was joking. It's nothing." Taeyoung's pout deepened, his eyes welling up. "How can you have a date when I'm here, Oppa?" Jungkook's expression softened, and he stroked Taeyoung's hair. "Jimin wants me to meet his boyfriend. Want to come with me?" Taeyoung's face lit up. "Can I? Who's his boyfriend?" "Min Yoongi," Jungkook replied, a hint of amusement in his voice. Taeyoung's eyes widened. "The singer? The producer? Oh my god, Oppa, I'm a huge fan." Taeyoung's excitement was palpable, and Jungkook watched, a mixture of affection and exasperation on his face. As Taeyoung rushed to get ready, Jungkook couldn't help but think, "Park Jimin, I hate you. Why did you have to fall for someone so famous?" Taeyoung emerged from the closet, holding up outfits. "Oppa, which one looks good?" Jungkook raised an eyebrow, his voice dry. "You're more excited about meeting Min Yoongi than you've ever been about me." Taeyoung's face fell, and he looked up at Jungkook with contrite eyes. "I'm sorry, Oppa. You know I love you." Jungkook's expression softened, and he pulled Taeyoung into a gentle kiss. "I know, Twink. Just try to behave, okay?" Taeyoung nodded, his eyes sparkling. "I promise, Oppa. I'll be good." As they left to meet Min Yoongi, Jungkook couldn't help but feel a twinge of jealousy. He hoped Taeyoung would remember that he was the one who held his heart. Jimin looked at Jungkook with concern. "Why do you look grumpy?" he asked. "I'm not introducing my boss to my boyfriend. I called my friend Jungkook." Jungkook's eyes narrowed. "Don't provoke me, Jimin," he warned. "I'm already so annoyed." "Oh, there he is." Yoongi approached them with a smile. "Hey, John Jungkook, the chief of police," he said. "Good to see you, sir." Jungkook's expression softened slightly. "Hyung, please just call me Jungkook," he requested. Jimin gestured to Taeyoung. "Hyung, Taeyoung." "Jungkook's." Yoongi's eyes lit up. Yes, I know," he interrupted. "Hi Taeyoung. Wow, how handsome you are." He extended his hand for a handshake. Taeyoung froze for a moment before bursting out excitedly. "Hyung. I'm your biggest fan," he exclaimed. "That last song, you got the award for it." Yoongi chuckled. "Oh, you mean?" Taeyoung shook his head. No. The other one." Yoongi chuckled again, leading them to his table. Come. Let's sit and talk, Tae," he said. "Boys, join us." Yoongi turned to Tae. "So that's your favorite?" he asked. "I'll compose a personalized track, just for you." Taeyoung beamed. "Thank you, Hyung. You're so kind." Jungkook clenched his fist. He thought to himself, am I not kind? Does he only see kindness in others, his mind racing with thoughts of why is he so taken with Yoongi? Doesn't he know I'm the one who loves him? Yoongi laughed. "Jimin, take note," he said. People really like me, look, a majestic fan right before us. And you never praise me. You don't even know the name of my last song. Jimin forced a smile, feeling a pang of low-key jealousy. Couldn't you just kill me, Jungkook, instead of letting Taehyung take center stage with him? Jimin murmured. Jungkook's eyes flashed. Your boyfriend is no saint either, flirting right in front of me, he growled. You better tell him to stay away from my Tae. Jimin rolled his eyes. Oh please. Your Tae is flirting with him. Jungkook's face darkened. Jimin, I swear I'll throw you out of this cafe, he threatened. Look. He's taking selfies with my Tae. Jimin laughed. And yet, on the other side is my boyfriend, Mr. John Jungkook, he said. Control your Tae, Mr. Jungkook's voice was tight with frustration. He's his fan, what can I do, he asked. Why do people even make songs? Jimin chuckled. So sad. Poor you, he teased. I suppose my boyfriend is handsome. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. Tae, let's go, he said abruptly. Hyung, I just remembered I've got urgent work. Yoongi's expression turned serious. Jungkook, I have a proposal, he said. Can I feature Tae in my next album? He has such great visuals. Jungkook's smile was forced. Haha. Why not? Right, Tae, he asked. Are you interested? Taehyung shook his head. No. It's okay. I'm good. Jungkook's voice was firm. He's not interested. Yoongi nodded. I'll wait, Tae, he said. Think about it. I'm sure Jungkook, being the gentleman he is, will support you. Jungkook's smile was tight. Yeah, sure, he said. If he wants. Jimin spoke up. Hyung, Tae's not interested, you know that, he said. Why bother him? What's wrong with you, Mr. Kopp, he asked. This is a golden opportunity. Jungkook stood up. Hyung, let's talk about it later, he said. You both have a good time, we'll take our leave. Yoongi smiled. Sure. Bye, sweetheart, he said, addressing Taehyung. Taehyung grinned. Bye, Hyung-ae. See you soon. Jimin rolled his eyes, clearly unimpressed. Jungkook's voice was low and husky. Sweetheart? Hyung-ae, he muttered to himself. Yet I have to beg to hear Appa. Taehyung turned to Jungkook. Appa, we should have stayed longer, he said. What meeting do you suddenly have? Anyway, wasn't he so handsome and nice, so humble? Right, Appa? How lucky Jimin SSI is. He gets to hear him sing every day. Jungkook's eyes narrowed, his jealousy simmering just below the surface. Why yeah, he said tightly. Very lucky. Throughout the drive, Taehyung couldn't stop praising Yoongi, while Jungkook stewed silently, his frustration building by the minute. As soon as Jungkook pulled the car into parking, he stormed out, his eyes blazing with a possessive fire. Taehyung followed, still basking in the excitement of meeting his favorite singer. Reaching their room, Jungkook slammed the door shut behind Taehyung, his hands moving swiftly to lock it. He peeled off his shirt, his muscles rippling beneath his skin as he turned to face Taehyung. Taehyung, oblivious to the tension, walked in, admiring the selfie he had taken with Yoongi. Appa, look at this. I'm totally framing this, he exclaimed, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Jungkook's patience snapped. Tae, you're killing me, he shouted, his voice echoing through the room like a primal claim. What were you thinking, flirting with him like that? Taehyung flinched, dropping his phone. Appa, what's wrong? You're scaring me, he whispered, his eyes wide with concern. Jungkook's gaze devoured Taehyung, his eyes burning with a fierce longing. Do you remember the rules we set, Tae? He asked, his voice low and seductive. You're mine, and I won't share you with anyone. Taehyung's smile faltered. Appa. I'm sorry. I was excited, he whispered, his voice trembling. Jungkook's hands moved to his belt, his fingers working the buckle with a deliberate slowness. "I'll make sure you remember," he whispered, his voice dripping with sensual promise. "You're going to pay for teasing me, Tae." Taeyoung's eyes widened as Jungkook's pants fell away, revealing his chiseled physique. "Oh Appa, please, not now," Taeyoung stuttered, his face flushing with a tantalizing mix of fear and arousal. Jungkook's smile was a wicked, "You're going to drive me crazy, twink," he whispered, his hands closing around Taeyoung's wrists like cuffs. "You know how I feel when you ignore me for someone else." Taeyoung's eyes sparkled with tears. "I'm sorry, Appa. I was just excited," he whispered, his voice trembling like a leaf. Jungkook's gaze ravished Taeyoung, his eyes burning with a fierce, all-consuming passion. "You're going to make it up to me, Tae," he whispered, his lips tracing a path down Taeyoung's neck. "You're going to show me you're mine. Stripe for me, now." Great visual? "And what did you call him, Hyunji?" Taeyoung's eyes melted into Jungkook's, his body surrendering to his husband's possessiveness. He smashed his lips to Jungkook's, taking the lead in a passionate kiss. Jungkook groaned, lifting Taeyoung slightly above the floor, deepening the kiss. Taeyoung panted, pulling away slightly. His hands curled around Jungkook's neck, his hips bucking up against his husband's. "I love the way you possess me, Appa," he whispered, his voice a sultry, sensual purr. "You make me feel so alive." Jungkook's eyes flashed with surprise, his heart skipping a beat. "You're the only one who makes me feel this way, Tae," he whispered, his voice low and throaty. "I'll never let anyone take that away from me." The next moment, he pounced on Taeyoung, throwing him onto the bed with a playful, sensual growl. "Don't forget your husband is a cop, and he's not afraid to use handcuffs," Jungkook whispered, his breath hot against Taeyoung's skin. Taeyoung shook his head, a sly smile spreading across his face. "I wouldn't have it any other way, Appa," he whispered. Jungkook's gaze devoured Taeyoung. "You're going to scream now, Tae," he growled, his hands roaming over Taeyoung's body with a sensual, possessive touch. "Yeah?" Jungkook's lips claimed Taeyoung's, his kiss deepening as he pinned Taeyoung's wrists to the bed. His knees pushed between Taeyoung's parted thighs, his body weight pressing down on his husband. But Taeyoung's eyes suddenly snapped shut, his face contorting in fear. Jungkook's bite on his neck sent a shiver down his spine, but it wasn't pleasure that coursed through his veins, it was anxiety. Jungkook didn't notice at first, too caught up in the heat of the moment. But as Taeyoung's body tensed beneath him, he realized something was wrong. "Twink, hey, baby?" Jungkook whispered, his voice laced with concern. "What happened, Tae?" Taeyoung's face was a mask of fear, his eyes clenched shut as if trying to block out a nightmare. Jungkook's heart skipped a beat as he quickly released Taeyoung's wrists, his hands cradling Taeyoung's face instead. "Tae, open your eyes," Jungkook whispered urgently, his thumbs tracing gentle circles on Taeyoung's cheeks. "Baby, it's me, Jungkook. You're safe." Taeyoung's eyes fluttered open, his gaze unfocused as he struggled to breathe. Jungkook's face swam into view, and Taeyoung's eyes locked onto his, pleading for comfort. "Appa?" Taeyoung whispered, his voice trembling. Jungkook's arms wrapped around Taeyoung, holding him close as he whispered soothing words into his ear. "It's okay, baby. Relax. I'm here." Tears dripped onto Jungkook's chest as Taeyoung's fist clenched around his back, holding him tight. Jungkook cursed himself for being so aggressive, for forgetting that Taeyoung's past was still a sensitive wound. "Tae, please baby, please forget it," Jungkook whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. "Appa loves you too much, Twink. I need you." As Jungkook's words washed over him, Taeyoung's tense body slowly relaxed, his breathing evening out as he burrowed deeper into Jungkook's embrace. Taeyoung slowly pulled away from Jungkook's embrace, guilt etched on his face. Jungkook's eyes searched his, concern etched on his features. "Tae?" Jungkook whispered, his voice soft. Taeyoung's voice trembled. "I'm sorry, Appa. I spoiled your..." Jungkook's gaze followed the tears that rolled down Taeyoung's cheeks, his heart aching. Taeyong buried his face in his palm, his body shaking with sobs. Why did they? Taeyong's words were barely audible, but Jungkook knew exactly what he was trying to say. Taeyong quickly composed himself, his voice laced with a false sense of calm. I need to wash up. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. Baby, you showered before we left. Taeyong hastily got out of bed, walking towards the bathroom with a frantic pace. Jungkook quickly followed, his long strides catching up to Taeyong. Tae. Jungkook grabbed Taeyong's wrist, turning him around. Taeyong's eyes pleaded. I want to, Appa. Please. Jungkook's face softened, his voice gentle. Hug me, Tae, please. Everything is fine, Tae. Believe the process. Believe Appa. You promised me, didn't you? Taeyong burst into tears, his body shaking uncontrollably. Jungkook pulled him into a tight hug, holding him until he relaxed, until he accepted, until he smiled. Later that night, Jungkook sat in the living room, sipping whiskey with Jimin. Jimin's voice was laced with concern. Kook, it's hard for him. Jungkook's eyes dropped, his voice barely above a whisper. I know, Jimin. He can't take such behavior from me. Jimin's words cut deep. Why can't you hold back yourself than behaving like a daddy on bed? Jungkook's fingers curled around the whiskey glass, his knuckles white. Jimin's suggestion was tentative. Why don't you go for a vacation with him? Take him to his grandma's. Let him heal, Jungkook. You never know, he might feel better there. Jungkook's eyes flashed with anger. I'm counting the days until that bastard wakes up from his coma, Jimin. Jimin's voice snapped. Kook. What's your priority now? Tae or taking revenge on an unconscious body lying on a hospital bed? Jungkook glared at Jimin, his face twisted in anger. Jimin's words were soft, but firm. Kook, listen to me. When the time comes, we'll do what we need to do. You want to go legally? Drag Tae to court? File a complaint? You think Tae would want that now? Jungkook's voice was laced with frustration. I don't know, Jimin. I just want to forget all this. But that day one is still breathing, and it makes my blood boil. Jimin's eyes locked onto Jungkook's. Listen to me, Kook. Go for a vacation. You both need this. Please. As the petals of cherry blossom swirled gently around them in the spring breeze. Jungkook's gaze lingered on the ethereal blooms. His mind danced with thoughts too wild to voice, a faint smile curling his lips. Beside him, Taeyong spoke softly, his voice tinged with sorrow. Appa, he murmured, his eyes fixed on the ground. Grandma cried a lot last night. Jungkook's wandering thoughts snapped into focus, his brow furrowing with concern. Did you tell her everything? He asked, his tone low but firm. Taeyong shook his head, his face paling further. Yes, he whispered, without hesitation. Jungkook drew Taeyong closer, his arm wrapping protectively around the younger man. Taeyong hesitated but finally spoke, his words laced with hesitation. She feels guilty about what happened with, he faltered, biting his lip as he nearly spoke the name. Jungkook's sharp gaze cut through him, halting the words before they could spill out. Don't, Jungkook said curtly, his voice a quiet warning. Taeyong nodded, swallowing hard as he looked away. After a moment of fragile quiet, Taeyong continued, his voice softer now. She said you're like a god to her now. At that, Jungkook's rigid expression melted into a warm, gentle smile. Did you tell her how crazy I am about my Tae? He teased, his tone effortlessly shifting to something lighter, playful. Taeyong flushed deeply, his cheeks blooming like the flowers around them, and he looked down in an effort to hide his embarrassment. Jungkook chuckled at the sight, leaning closer. No worries, he whispered, a mischievous glint in his eyes. She'll figure it out tonight. Taeyong's hand instinctively tightened on Jungkook's arm, his blush deepening into a fiery red as he avoided the teasing gaze. The cherry blossoms above swayed gently, as if witnessing a love both delicate and profound. The moonlight spilled through the window, casting a silver glow over the room as Jungkook leaned against the doorframe, a smirk tugging at his lips. His eyes followed Taeyoung's graceful ascent to the room. Taeyoung froze as he stepped inside, his gaze locking onto the bed adorned with delicate cherry blossoms, their soft petals scattered like whispers of spring. His breath hitched, his voice barely audible. When did you do this?" Jungkook stepped forward, his movements deliberate, his hands tucked casually into his pockets. "While you were busy clinging to your grandma," he replied, his tone teasing yet laced with affection. Closing the distance between them, Jungkook's chest brushed against Taeyoung's back, the warmth of his presence sending shivers down Taeyoung's spine. He leaned in, his lips hovering near Taeyoung's ear, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. "This is going to be wild. I want my beauty to lay there, bare." Taeyoung's breath caught, his heart pounding as the words sank in. The traditional Japanese village house creaked softly in the silent night, the scent of cherry blossoms wafting through the open windows. The moon cast a silver glow over the room, illuminating the tender moment between Jungkook and Taeyoung. Taeyoung's hand flew to Jungkook's mouth, his palm covering his lips. "Appa, please. Grandma might hear us," he whispered, his eyes pleading. Jungkook's tongue rolled against Taeyoung's palm, his eyes sparkling with mischief. He yanked off Taeyoung's hand, pinning it above his head as he slowly kissed his forehead. Once, twice, thrice. Taeyoung's body squirmed, the bed creaking softly in protest. Taeyoung suddenly stilled, his eyes wide with embarrassment. Jungkook's smile was reassuring. "Don't worry about Grandma, my love. Tonight, it's just us. Focus on the way I make you feel." Taeyoung's eyes narrowed, his voice low and sultry. "You're the envy of every woman in the village, Appa. They can only dream of having a man like you." Jungkook's laughter was low and husky. "Are you feeling possessive, my love? Do you want to mark me as yours, to keep me from prying eyes?" Taeyoung's face flushed deeper as he pushed Jungkook to the side, climbing on top of him. He seated himself on Jungkook's abs, his hands reaching for his t-shirt. Jungkook watched, amused, as Taeyoung stripped off his shirt, his eyes roving over Taeyoung's chest. As Taeyoung began kissing him, Jungkook's eyes fluttered closed, his body relaxing into the sensation. Taeyoung's lips were gentle at first, but soon grew more aggressive, his tongue tracing a path down Jungkook's chest. Jungkook groaned in pleasure, his hands reaching for Taeyoung's head. "Taste me, Tae. Explore every inch of my skin." When he got no response, he opened his eyes, craving more. Their eyes locked, and Tae's voice dropped to a whisper. "Appa, my heart beats only for you. Without you, I'm lost, adrift in a world that doesn't make sense." Jungkook's eyes locked onto Taeyoung's, his heart soaring at the declaration. "Tonight, Tae, I'll unleash the depths of my passion for you. I'll show you the madness that drives me, the all-consuming love that burns within me." He flipped Taeyoung over, the bed creaking loudly in protest. But Jungkook didn't care, he was too busy pulling off Taeyoung's bottom wear. "Surrender to me, Tae," Jungkook whispered, his lips closing around Taeyoung's nipple. "Let go of your inhibitions, and let me love you the way I was meant to." Taeyoung's voice was muffled, but Jungkook could sense his surrender. "Forgive me, my love," Jungkook whispered, his lips tracing a path down Taeyoung's chest. "Forgive me for not being gentle enough, for not being able to control the beast that drives me." As the night wore on, the only sound was Taeyoung's muffled moans, his body arching beneath Jungkook's. Jungkook reclined in his seat, a soft smile playing on his lips, his mind drifting to thoughts of Taeyoung, his presence, his warmth, the way his laughter could brighten even the darkest days. Jimin noticed Jungkook's dreamy expression. "What's with the smile, boss?" he teased lightly, taking a sip of his drink. Jungkook's eyes sparkled. "I was thinking about Tae," he admitted, the affection in his voice undeniable. "Of course," Jimin replied knowingly. "By the way, Hyung asked about him earlier." Jungkook's gaze sharpened slightly, his tone shifting to one of quiet resolve. "My gun's always loaded. Let him know." Jimin smirked. "I know, Mr. Possessive." So, how's it going with Taeyong? Jungkook's expression softened again, his voice dropping as he spoke, almost reverently. Wonderful. Honestly, no words can describe it, it's beautiful, Jimin. My Tay is amazing. He's a whole world of life wrapped into one person. You just have to give in, you know? Waking up to his face, falling asleep near him while watching that cute pout, it's perfect. Jimin's grin widened. I'm happy for you, Jungkook. Jungkook nodded, acknowledging the hint of caution, and he said firmly, before turning the conversation on his friend. What about you? Any marriage plans? Jimin sighed. Not soon. He needs some time, at least a year. Moments later, Jimin reached for his cigarette. Hold on a sec, I need a smoke. Jungkook's brow arched slightly, his tone carrying a hint of humor. Does your singer know about this habit of yours? Jimin shrugged nonchalantly. What do you expect me to do after every night with him? Jerk, Jungkook muttered with a smirk. Are you all ready? He asked. Yeah, I'll wait like you did, though I'm already 30, man. Jungkook chuckled. My wait was worth it, Jimin. I wouldn't be satisfied anywhere else. Suddenly, Jungkook's phone rang. Glancing at the screen, he saw it was his mom. He answered quickly. Yes, Mom. I'm on my way. Wait, what? Are you sure? His expression turned serious, his tone urgent. Okay, I'm coming. Disconnecting the call, Jungkook let out a heavy sigh, his head lightly resting against the dashboard. Jimin, he said, his voice tense. Can we speed up a little? I need to get there urgently. Jimin, sensing the gravity of the situation, threw his cigarette down and crushed it underfoot before climbing into the car. What happened? Is everything okay? Is Taeyong fine? He asked, concerned. Jungkook shook his head. I'll tell you later, just drive fast. As the car sped through the streets, Jungkook's expression began to shift, a small, joyous smile blooming despite the tension. Jimin glanced at him curiously. What's going on? He asked, still focused on the road. Jungkook replied, his voice soft. It's Taeyong. He's carrying. Jimin's eyes widened in surprise before laughter erupted from him. I like it, I really like it. A stop to your hunger-filled nights. I'm so happy for you, man. Jungkook groaned, shaking his head as Jimin teased him further. Exactly, you couldn't control yourself, could you? Jimin said, grinning. Control? Around Taeyong? Never, Jungkook responded, his voice filled with pride and affection. They arrived at the house to find Taeyong plating food for dinner. His movements were calm, his expression serene. Jimin leaned over to Jungkook, whispering, he looks normal. Does he even know? Jungkook hesitated, confusion flickering in his eyes. Did my mom prank me? He muttered under his breath. Taeyong glanced up as they entered, his face lighting up. You're home. I'm hungry. Jimin SSI, please join us for dinner. Jungkook's mom joined them at the table, her voice warm. Jimin, come eat, it's Tae who cooked tonight. Jimin, about to sit down, paused to whisper to Jungkook, did he poison it again? Jungkook shot him a glare. Shut up and eat, he said firmly. Then, turning to Taeyong, he added, you, come with me. Taeyong frowned slightly. But I'm hungry. I said come with me. Now, Jungkook interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. Taeyong followed Jungkook to the next room, confusion etched on his features. What's wrong now? He asked. Why are you acting normal, extra normal? Jungkook demanded. Taeyong tilted his head, puzzled. Because I am normal. And did Jimin SSI mean I mixed poison again? That's not what I asked, Jungkook muttered, frustration tinging his voice. Mom said something. Taeyong's eyes sparkled as realization dawned. Mom said. Jungkook stood impatiently, his eyes shining with anticipation. Tae, is it true? Jungkook asked. Taeyoung's cheeks flushed as he whispered, "I've just started browsing ideas." Jungkook's frown deepened, his brow furrowed in confusion. Ideas? What ideas, my love? Jungkook's voice was laced with curiosity, his eyes locked onto Taeyoung's. Taeyoung's blush deepened as he bit his lip. How to tell your husband that you're carrying his little bundle of joy, his naughty secret. Jungkook sank onto the couch, clutching his stomach as he laughed heartily. "Oh, Taeyoung. Why are you so adorable?" Taeyoung crossed his arms, his pout returning. "Stop laughing, Jungkook, you should be surprised. In fact, you should lift me up. Mom and son spoiled everything." Jungkook grinned, shaking his head. "I was so embarrassed. Jimin said it's just 3 months. Mom said the same," Taeyoung replied, still blushing. "You should have behaved." "Excuse me, who moans every night and early morning on purpose?" "I'm in my 20s, it's normal," Taeyoung retorted. "Now you better act surprised and happy." Jungkook chuckled, raising his hands in surrender. "All right. Start, I don't know anything. I just came back from work." Taeyoung fiddled with his hands, an air of anticipation surrounding him. He looked at Jungkook, who was casually lounging on the couch after his long day at work. Taeyoung cleared his throat dramatically. "Appa," Taeyoung began, trying to keep a straight face. "Take off your shirt." Jungkook blinked, sitting up slightly. "Huh? Already, twink," he teased, his lips twitching into a playful grin. Taeyoung rolled his eyes. "Appa, that's what you always do after coming home from work, isn't it? Just go along with it." Jungkook smirked. "Alright, ready," he said, playing along as he shrugged off his uniform. But as Taeyoung tried to continue his dramatic reenactment, he faltered. "Aish. I can't do this. You're humming, it's ruining the mood." "There's no feeling in it," he complained, crossing his arms. "My humming?" Jungkook retorted, feigning offense. "That's how I hum. What's wrong with it?" "You're laughing between, I can see it," Taeyoung accused, pointing a finger at him. Jungkook raised his hands in mock surrender, stifling a chuckle. "Fine, take 2. But you'd better be natural this time, Tay-Tay." Taeyoung placed his hands on his hips, tilting his head confidently. "I'm a born artist, Appa. Just concentrate on your lines." With a mock-serious nod, Jungkook adjusted his expression. Taeyoung stepped closer, his demeanor softening as the act melted into something genuine. Tae's gaze lingered on Jungkook, his lips trembling as words failed him. The unspoken emotions weighed heavy in the air, like a song without melody, waiting to be heard. Jungkook rose to his feet, his hands gently gripping Tae's shoulders, steadying him, not just physically, but emotionally. "Tae," Jungkook said, his voice low and comforting, like a soft caress. "Don't struggle for words. Your eyes, they say more than your voice ever could." He paused, his gaze locking with Tae's, a small smile playing at his lips. "Everything's perfect, isn't it?" Tae's eyes brimmed with unshed tears, the kind born from overwhelming love and vulnerability. Slowly, he nodded, unable to trust his voice, but knowing Jungkook didn't need it. In one fluid motion, Jungkook enveloped him in an embrace, so tight it felt as though he was trying to fuse their hearts into one. Tae pressed his face against Jungkook's chest, his smile blooming as he listened to the steady rhythm of Jungkook's heartbeat. It was as if the sound was a promise, echoing, "You're safe. You're loved. Always." 8 months later, as the calendar turned to spring, life had settled into a beautiful rhythm. Jungkook sat at his desk, engaged in a video call with his team. His tone was sharp and focused as he delegated tasks, his natural charisma shining through. "Jimin, follow up on that lead," he instructed. "I'll check back with the team later." With the call wrapped up, he leaned back in his chair, giving his attention to Taeyoung, who had been standing nearby with a thoughtful expression. "Tell me, Twink," Jungkook said, his voice softer now, as he reached for the file on his desk. "Appa," Taeyoung began hesitantly, "Grandma wants to meet me." She said I could stay with her for a while. Our family doctor lives nearby, so. Jungkook didn't respond immediately, his focus momentarily lingering on his file. Did you eat? He asked nonchalantly. Yes, Taeyoung replied softly, lowering his gaze. Disheartened by Jungkook's lack of reaction, he turned to leave. Twink, Jungkook's voice broke the silence, his hand reaching out to gently pull Taeyoung back. He guided him onto his lap, his arms wrapping protectively around him. Don't even think of leaving me, okay? Especially now. It's a no, Jungkook said firmly, though his tone was warm. And saying it outright hurts more than ignoring the question. Ask Grandma to come here instead. We'll take care of all the travel arrangements. Taeyoung's eyes glistened with unshed tears. He wrapped an arm around Jungkook's neck, pressing a gentle kiss to his cheek. I love you, he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. Jungkook smiled, his tone turning playful. You've completely ruined my work mode, Twink. Now what do I do? Jimin's voice chimed in, his grin practically audible. I'll handle it, Chief. You can go, but be gentle, okay? Taeyoung pouted, his cheeks flushing. Aish. Appa, you didn't mute the call, he exclaimed in embarrassment. Jungkook shot a mock glare at Jimin. You jerk. Were you enjoying this scene? I swear, this man is everywhere. Jimin laughed unabashedly. Of course. That's why you get so much time with your Tay-Tay. Lucky for you, the team already logged off. Shaking his head, Jungkook stood, switching off his laptop. He turned to Taeyoung with a mischievous glint in his eyes. Mr. Park, carry on. I'm taking a break with my Twink. Jungkook's fingers danced across the buttons of Taeyoung's shirt, slowly unfastening them as his mouth grazed the sensitive skin of Taeyoung's shoulder. The shirt slid off, revealing the smooth expanse of Taeyoung's chest, his belly slightly rounded. With their growing child. Appa. Taeyoung's voice was a soft whisper, his eyes fluttering closed as Jungkook's lips caressed his skin. Let's surrender to the moment, baby, Jungkook whispered, his breath hot against Taeyoung's skin. Appa is craving you, needs to feel you wrapped around him. Taeyoung's gaze drifted to his belly, where Jungkook's hand rested. Jungkook's eyes locked onto his voice a gentle promise. I'll be gentle, my love. I'll cherish you, and our little miracle. His lips claimed Taeyoung's, the kiss deepening as Jungkook's hands roamed over Taeyoung's body, careful not to put too much pressure on his belly. Taeyoung's fingers crawled through Jungkook's hair, his body arching into the touch. Appa. Taeyoung's voice was a breathy whisper, his body trembling with anticipation. Jungkook's lips trailed down his chest, his tongue tracing a path that left Taeyoung gasping. The hallway outside the hospital room was filled with a tense but heartwarming energy. Jungkook's mom leaned against the wall, a soft smile gracing her lips as she watched her son pacing back and forth like a restless lion. Are you jogging, son? She teased, her voice laced with amusement. Jungkook paused mid-step, turning to her with an exasperated look. Mom, how can you sit there so calmly? This is so difficult, he exclaimed, running a hand through his hair in frustration. She chuckled, shaking her head. You need a smoke or something, go calm your nerves. Come on, Mom, Jungkook grumbled, his agitation evident. Mrs. John softened her tone. He'll be fine, idiot. Trust me. The doctor even said you could go inside. Jungkook sighed deeply, his hands clenching and unclenching. I wish I could, but what if I faint in there? Can you imagine how embarrassing that would be? His mom raised an eyebrow, her expression both loving and incredulous. How did you even become chief kook with this kind of composure? She quipped, shaking her head. Jungkook stopped pacing for a moment, his gaze softening. With Tae, it's different, Mom. I can't even scold him, he admitted with a small, sheepish smile. She regarded him warmly, her voice gentle as she said, You love him a lot, don't you? He's worth it. I'm so happy for you, Kook. Thanks, Mom, Jungkook murmured, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes. Her smile widened as she nodded toward the door. Go inside, son. Meet your junior. Your baby's waiting. But Jungkook hesitated, a tender expression crossing his face. I want to see Tae first. Mrs. John laughed, shaking her head in mock surrender. Fine, but just so you know, I'm teaming up with my grandson, she said with a playful grin. As they spoke, the nurse emerged from the delivery room, cradling the newborn in her arms. Mrs. John stole a quick glance at the baby, her heart swelling at the sight. But before she could say anything, Jungkook darted past her and the nurse, rushing straight into the room. Sir, you can't go in there, the nurse started, flustered. Mrs. John held up a hand, smiling knowingly. Don't mind him, he's crazy. I'll take care of my little cupcake, she said, gently taking the baby into her arms. She cradled her grandson, her gaze soft and filled with wonder. Look at this. Your dada already ran off to his love of his life and left you here with me. We should teach him a lesson, don't you think? Grandma's on your side. The nurse chuckled, her own smile warm. You're so lucky, ma'am, she said sincerely, glancing at Mrs. John, whose eyes misted over.